If you don't know my next guest from commercials, independent films, or even from his long stint at QVC, the shopping channel, you certainly know his voice, especially if you live and work in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we will get to that voice momentarily, but first I want to welcome Robb Del Casale. How are you, friend?
I'm great. Good to see you, Paul. You're looking wonderful as always.
Thank you. Keep the stress levels low. That's it.
You could teach me how to do that. If that's what makes you look good, I can use it.
Moisturize and meditate. That's my advice.
Tennis is my meditation. When I'm on the court, everything goes away. Yeah. So
golf is my meditation, but it's also my source of stress.
I was going to say golf. I mean, with tennis, it happens so quickly. When you make a mistake, you have to as John McEnroe says, forgive yourself immediately because the next ball's coming. Golf, you have all that time to walk to find the ball and berate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I rope hook one or slice one, and I have a 220-yard walk to ruminate and ponder and say what a sorry sack of you know what I am. Anyway,
ruminate. Good one.
Rumination. See that? Prep school.
Good one. Yeah, I know.
Anyway, why don't we just start from the beginning? And I think your beginning is a little bit unique as far as the other guests I've had so far in the show, in that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no theater for you growing up, but it was your first taste of being out there as far as being an actor-ish was through high school forensics, correct?
Right. And for people that don't know, forensics has nothing to do with dead bodies. It's basically an offshoot of debate. And then under debate, there were other events that came from it. So, for instance, there were individual speaking events where you either wrote your speeches, there were impromptu events off the cuff or on certain political topics usually. And then there were the interpretation events, which is where I started in prose reading, poetry reading, script in hand. And then a single interpret drama, dual interpret drama in college is where I really, high school, I did really well. I had scholarship to it. I was very grateful to St. Joe's. I was a national finalist, which was really exciting, state champion. I really found my groove in it and stayed in the activity for 38 years.
38?
Not competing, but yeah, I coached. When I was in high school, I coached grade school. When I was in grade school, when I was in college, I coached high school. And then after that, I was coaching college and high school with your former teacher, who was my coach in college. We both went to St. Joe's. He coached me. Then I helped him with his students, who many graduated and came to St. Joe's when I was coaching there. So we both had a core of students that we worked with for about 8 years straight.
And his name is?
Tony Fiola, the guru, as I call him. I talked to him today. Yeah. So good.
Shout out to Mr. F, Tony Fiola.
He said so. He speaks.
We love him. We miss him. Happy retirement.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can see him ushering, I assume, at the Bristol Riverside Theater.
Yeah.
And during theater season. If you talk to him, I don't know if he would remember it, but I dabbled in forensics. I never officially did it. I didn't have the backbone. I did well in class, per se, but I never ventured onto the stage. I never competed. And but if I'm being honest, that was my first inkling of, my first sense of awareness of, I really think I want to try acting, but I just wasn't ready for it then. I never did theater in high school. It didn't happen for me until college. That's when the seed finally broke open a bit for me. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I fell in love with films. And I knew I wanted to be an actor from the time I was a kid, but it wasn't something in my family that they kind of could wrap their head around. And I always did what I was told. I was one of those kids. So when I hit high school in this activity, I met other people from other schools, particularly one actress who's done very well in the Philadelphia area and elsewhere, Suzanne Smart, who went to Archbishop Prendergast, and we competed against each other. And toward the end of our competition year, she said to myself and several, you should come to Summer Stage. And I was like, what's Summer Stage? And Upper Darby High School as a one of the best. It's rated now. I mean, I was there first couple of years, but one of the best youth theater programs in the country, run by a man named Harry Dietzler. He was just his whole family, great people. And I went out to Summer Stage and I found theater finally, right after high school.
Nice. I mean, and speaking of Summer Stage and Upper Darby, some of the credits: Bye Bye Birdie, Brigadoon, and Guys and Dolls. Was Guys and Dolls your first lead?
Yeah, my third show, my first lead, I played Nathan Detroit, the Frank Sinatra role for the movie, if anyone's ever seen it. And my claim to fame, or knowing fame, is the woman who played Adelaide, it's from Upper Darby, Alden, went on to become Everybody Loves Raymond, Raymond's brother's wife, Amy, on the show. And Monica has done great things since then. I saw her in a play just a few months back. So still the same great Monica, but there were good people that came out of Summer Stage. Suzanne, Tina Fey actually was 7 years younger than I, and was on crew when I played the Pharaoh and Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, my last show there. She wasn't even acting then. So a lot of good people came out of Summer Stage.
They grow them in Upper Darby, don't they?
Yeah, apparently, and elsewhere. Because the South Philly contingent, when we came in, they were like, "Who are these Italians?" He says, "Oh, it's the three Italians: Gia Faglione, Del Casale, and Colapinto." Listen, they were like, "Who are these people?"
It's not just the Philly area, but just Pennsylvania. There's a lot of actors who have made it from the state.
Huh?
Really, there's something in the soil.
Oh, Kevin Bacon's not far from there, and of course Bradley Cooper. We could go on.
Yeah.
Even the Barrymores were born in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's pretty amazing.
Summer Stage in Upper Darby, and you got going there, and then eventually you transitioned into camera work out of college, and as you became an adult and whatnot. I'm curious. If you had to pick one or the other in terms of just general enjoyment, whether it's theater or camera work in terms of film and television, which one would you pick?
Honestly, I haven't done as much television I want to, but I hope there's time still left for that. So the television I did was mainly, I'm sure we'll talk about it, maybe QVC, which is a whole other animal. I mean, it's definitely on television in front of millions of people live, which is exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. But I think my heart's desire, theater, it was just something that you can't beat. The reaction, the instant gratification. When I played Nathan and opening night, I'll never forget it. I took my bow. I came up and 800 people were standing and I was stunned. I mean, I opened it. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was a good cast and I felt I'd done well, but I was just moved, like standing for me. It's pretty amazing. So
when that wall of emotion hits you like a tidal wave,
it just did again.
It knocks you down, and it's a drug that you never really quite get over, right?
Yeah, I think that I appreciated their response as much as they appreciated my performance, and that's how I look at it. I was grateful that they liked it, and that I made them feel happy. And I was, way back when, I don't remember if you did this in an acting class or even in high school. What was your mission statement? What was it? And it was, I remember, that mine was to move people to tears or laughter, like words and performance. That was what I wanted to do. What most made me feel connected to it all. So it's been a long time since I thought of that. So
wow.
I really haven't been in a play in a long time, and I got my equity card in late 90s, but was unsuccessful in transitioning to more theater in Philly, and that's why I went more the video route. I was like, okay, let's try something.
Yeah, the video route is a nice offshoot that people may not realize that actors and talent have in the Philadelphia area, because we have QVC in this area, the electronic retailer in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So it was started in the 80s, and you had QVC, and you have Home Shopping Network, and you have an outfit in Canada as well, I believe.
Yeah,
but
CSC Canada, yeah.
But it's interesting in that it's not just TV, film, industrials for actors in this market. That there's other, like I said, offshoots that you can explore. Like one of them is standardized patient work in hospitals where doctors come in and they have to determine a diagnosis based on a condition that you are trying to communicate. There's also, in your case, being a vendor representative, a product representative for QVC. Not necessarily acting in the definition sense, but how would you describe being a vendor rep or a product rep? Is it as straightforward as just knowing the product inside and out and presenting it?
Well, in basic terms, yeah. It's we call them more on-air guest host, because the vendor rep's the person that gets the item to go on air. Sometimes they also are the on-air guest, but the on-air guest has to be the product expert. They have to know everything about it because questions can come up from people calling in or from the host. Now, to be quite honest, we would have pre-meets with the host where we would go over our 3 main bullet points, because you have a limited number of minutes in which to present a large amount of information, and the host is really leading the show. So when you got to speak, it better be succinct, clear, and tight, really to the point. And so you really had to know your stuff. I mean, you hope they didn't throw you curveballs on the air, which some of the hosts like to do. So you had to be on your toes. But it was a lot of fun. It was, I felt it was a good mix of everything that I had done heretofore, because I had been in public speaking. I had been coaching public speaking. So I knew how to present. I knew how to connect to an audience, what to do specifically. When I was looking at the camera, even though there were millions of people out there, I always felt like when they introduced me and I started, I was talking to the woman who lived 3 doors away from my mother, who had just bought an electronic, which I sold electronics for most of my career there. And I had to make it accessible to her in a friendly, understandable manner. I don't like to say dumbed down. I just had to present it in a way that they would not feel intimidated by it, and they thought, oh, I can do this too. So that was my goal. And my idea, my philosophy on QVC was preparation, presentation, and then inevitably there had to be some improvisation. So I had done improv, I had done public speaking, I had done, presenting. So acting, not really, but you had to be on, that's for sure.
And you had to be comfortable in front of a camera.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about the camera. I never was intimidated by the live, oh, you have 1 million people or millions of people watching. I mean, there were things that happened here. I could tell you one of my bloopers if you want. It wasn't too bad. Well, I was
dish.
I a couple times. I'll try to be. There were a couple of funny things that happened, many, but the one time I was presenting a self-contained printer and had the paper and the ink all in one little miniature design, and they always wanted you, if you could, to cross-sell either with another guest's item or another item you might have had on previously or even in the same show. So presenting this printer, I alluded to another item, and I said, well, if you picked up this printer here and you also picked up our wand scanner before, then you could scan your pictures in, and with this you could print your old photos and your nude photos. And I just kept going because I thought no one heard me hit the D at the end of that. They thought I said new. And so I kept going. The host went, wait a minute. Did you say nude photos? And I was red, crimson, and I said, hey, yes, I did, and I was hoping no one heard it. And he looked directly at the camera and said, new. He meant new photos, and he gave me a look like, and I thought I was fired. Oh,
I bet you weren't looking forward to that product review.
They didn't.
Or tape review.
No one ever said anything. I mean, no one ever gave me a hard time. I mean, it was an innocent mistake. But it was what it was. So it happened.
I never embarrassed myself to that degree at the Q. I was there for 11 years. I was in internal communication right out of college, and then followed by creative services. But I interned there my senior year of college in 97, 98. And that was I have more stories from being the intern. I just remember my buddy Chris and I just hobnobbing around the set, the control rooms. The place was literally a playground. Studio Park was still relatively new. It still had the shrink wrap on it. It still had that new car smell.
Mm-hmm.
As far as guests go, I remember Fabio was there one day, the supermodel Fabio, and he was selling his romance novels. And sure enough, we ran into him and his manager on the set, and the manager sees us standing there. We're just pulling cable for the cell, and he just very casually and matter-of-factly says, "Would you like a book?" All I'm thinking is, like, in a few hours, I got to go back to school and go into the commissary for dinner, and I'm going to have this romance novel tucked under my arm. I only had a few friends, but I wanted to keep those friends, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But he was a cool guy. He was cool.
Yeah, there were a lot of, I met some really good people, nice people. Some celebrities, when I was there, I tried not to treat anybody indifferently. They were there to work. I was there to work. So I tried to respect that. I remember, I think my favorite celebrity that I met was Tony Orlando, the singer from Yellow Ribbon. Could not have been any nicer. Just a really great, there were a lot of nice people. He was a great guy. Yeah, so fond memories. Richard Simmons actually was very nice too.
Oh, I've never heard a bad story about Richard at all.
Nice guy. He kept complimenting what I wore. Like, thank you. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If I remember in our conversations also, your favorite guest, was it a certain Happy Days actor?
Oh, Anson Williams. Yeah, sure. I was talking to this guy for about a half an hour, and outside QVC at the desk where you get mic'd up, and then there's an area where you wait until time to get mic'd up, and you snacks and talk to the other guests. And we got to chatting, and I don't remember what we were talking about. And then I realized, I said, "Oh my gosh," I said, "we've been speaking a half hour and never even introduced myself." I extended my hand. I said, "My name is Rob." He says, "I'm Anson." And I went, "Anson?" I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "You're Anson Williamson." He's like, "Yeah, I'm just normal as that." And why shouldn't he be normal as anything? But the idea that a celebrity is going to act differently is, I think, in a lot of people's heads. But Marie Osmond was great. My mom had a question about a doll. I asked her assistant if she could ask Marie how to fix this doll my mother had. I was waiting outside the door. The next thing you know, Marie Osmond herself walks in. "Who had the question?" I was like, and I was like, "Thank you for taking time." She was like, "Oh, no problem." It's nice when people are like that.
Of course. And I'm sure we have Joan Rivers stories as well.
I never got to speak to her personally, but she always would wave hello to everyone when she walked in. And then when she was always in a rush because she had a busy schedule. So she would come in, do her thing, and then they'd whisk her out the door. Yeah.
Sure.
She always waved hello and bye to everybody. And the people that she did interact with, they said she was lonely.
Yeah. Her dog had a near-death experience courtesy of my foot as it rounded a corner one day in the atrium.
Oh.
As it was heading out the door to take a number 2, but it never made it to the door. It went right in one of the fake plants.
Oh, geez.
In the atrium.
Oh my gosh, there's a memory.
Yeah, that one's hard to wipe. But yeah, thank God for QVC, because it's like I said, it's like a little off ramp for all of us in a way.
Yeah,
to kind of just.
For years to get on, and I just went into an actress at an audition who I had done a showcase with back in the 90s. What have you been doing? What have you been doing? I've been on QVC. I'm trying to get on QVC. And she said, "Oh, well, the guy I'm working for is looking for a guy to do electronics." And I had no knowledge of electronics. Yeah, I could do it. It was a DVD player. That DVD player I sold in 2003 still works. I still have it. And that was how it started. And I knew nothing about electronics, but my father, God rest him, he was an electrical engineer by trade. So I had kind of this ace in the hole that if I had any electronic questions, I could just go to Dad. I mean, I had to learn the product, but if there were those technical things, he was always at the ready. But as technology went super fast, it passed him by. So basically, I did become the electronics expert just by reading manual after manual after manual. I did the first full hour of high definition televisions at QVC, and that was frightening because I had to learn
Imagine.
these and smart drives and do it live. So it was a great experience.
How many appearances did you have overall at the Q?
I was there from 2003 to 2020. A little bit on the not many at the beginning and end. I think it was over 1,700. Yeah,
1,700.
There were some years where I did almost 300 airings.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And the great thing about that, Paul, was that I was working so much, and any actor that's working is great before it. The downside, if I can say there's a downside to it, was my schedule wasn't mine. It was theirs. I was on their schedule. So auditioning for a play was out, for years. I couldn't even think about it. And also I couldn't commit to, if I auditioned for this, what if it shot on that day? And you can't just tell QVC, well, I'm booked. It doesn't work that way. You'd have to tell your agent, I'm booked on QVC. So there became less and less of my being able to, I mean, I kept my hand in, and I was still doing that. I wasn't working constantly, but there were times where you were just holding your breath that you weren't going to have that conflict. Yeah. So
to use a Godfather reference, I guess QVC was like the family, and don't ever take sides against the family.
Yeah, and also I keep trying to get out. They keep pulling me back in.
Exactly.
Nice.
But nevertheless, in spite of the positives and negatives with anything, QVC was a nice boat to be moored on.
I don't know what I would have done without it, because I mean, that's how I was mainly making my living for several years. And I'm very grateful for the experience. And of course, for that, because what it's like, gig to gig just they're not always that frequent sometimes.
Of course. Yeah, I want to get to that in terms of gigs. And there's one gig in particular that I remember you walked in one day at Herein Casting in Philadelphia. You, for some reason, and I want to get the how and the why from you with this, but you walked into an audition fully decked out in this Andy Kaufman, Tony Clifton-esque getup that was like some disco car salesman. And it took me a few moments to realize, oh my God, this is Robb. And he's going full method right into the casting waiting room. Not even into the audition yet, but in the waiting room. And I'm thinking, oh my, if he books this job, then all our lives are going to get harder, because then we're all going to go method overnight.
To wear something if it was a character that would suggest it. But when they said 1970s used car salesman, I just really kind of, I mean, I Googled, to see what 70. I mean, I used to do character work for a company called the Entertainment Group. So sometimes I did a nerd, and sometimes I did a goomba. And so I had all this other stuff. And I thought, well, I have this jacket and I have these crazy pants. And I actually used one of my mother wore wigs a long time ago. She has it. But I turned it, and it almost made me look like Sonny Bono the way that it felt. I had the big sunglasses, and I used some fake hair from mutton chops that I wore. And I just cut it down and put a mustache. So I remember that. And then I walked in, and no one else was like in anything remotely resembling it. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. I like overdid it, I thought. And I remember Diane Herein just stopping dead in her tracks. Like, as you said, figuring out who this was. And then before I left it, she said, I can't stop looking at you. I didn't book it, but I'm glad you remember that. Oh, I have pictures of that somewhere if you want one. I'll autograph it for you.
I could last years on I can't stop looking at you.
She, honest to God.
If the right individual said that to me.
Did say that.
Shit.
I can't stop because it was so bizarre, I guess.
Well, she's looking at you, but all of us are looking at you like side eye.
Yeah. Well, they say you make a strong choice, put it out there. I made a very strong choice.
And you made an extremely razor sharp choice, and you know what? Hats off to you for doing that. And all these years later, just some silly little job that's long forgotten And I remember the choice you made on that day. That's how bold it was.
Break the beaver.
We are working in and around this regional market in the Philadelphia area. And I remember from talking with you years ago in our commiserations, we kind of coined a term for our baseline, our average. And I think that term was the $500 job.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like a dichotomy in a way, because it's like you're grateful to book work, you're grateful to do gigs, but we don't book these gigs every day. If we were making $500 a day, nobody would be complaining, right? But when that usually is the bread and butter, eventually you get used to something. And for us, we get used to the quote unquote $500 jobs.
Don't forget, that was before the Asians cut.
True, of course.
So yeah, you're always grateful for the work, and it was great to have those jobs, but eventually you just it isn't necessarily wanting more money, but it feels like, no insult to anyone who's doing $500 jobs. I would like a few right now. Anybody wants to use me, but been there, done that. Like, how many of these commercials can you do? Not, just wanting to be at another level, which I think goes with almost anything you do. I think if you think you know something, if you think you know everything about something, then move on, because you'll never learn more. And I feel like maybe we were stagnating in some of those jobs. Maybe.
Yeah, obviously it's not everything is 500, but that's just the term in terms of what we were used to. JoJo's HVAC or whatever for $500, and you're the dad or the rep or one of those characters. And
right.
Maybe one line, maybe not speaking, just smile. And again, we're grateful for the work casting. We're grateful for the work agents. We're just saying, is this always going to be what it is?
Right. I think that's why I enjoyed the industrials even more than the commercials, because you actually had to do some acting. I always I got cast as we did a lot of ethics industrials. I always got cast as the person who did something wrong. The sexual harasser. A friend told me that he saw it in Vegas and it won an award. I was the angry boss berating like an employee. I was the person doing something that had a conflict of interest. I was like, I don't know, they're typecasting me. So
you won an award for being an angry boss?
No, the video won an award for my being a sexual harasser.
The things you learn in the podcast world. Oh my God. Never knew that about you. I am shocked. But again, I'm not shocked. You're a hell of an actor, Rob.
I don't play. I'm not a sexual harasser, but I play one on Industry.
It's my favorite line too. But we're grateful for the work when it comes, even if it's bread and butter stuff. But there's times when the work just doesn't come, and we get older, we get a little longer in the tooth, we get a little complacent, we get bored, or we're just parched for work that just isn't consistent. And that's the reality of what we do. It's never a constant flow. And we start to second guess ourselves, and we start to worry. And I know I do that even to this day after 15 years into the business. And I know that you've had those moments too. And there's the aspect of luck involved in booking work, but I've also heard the adage that the jobs that are meant for you will find you. And in 2015, you had a whopper of a job to find you. You just didn't know it was going to be a whopper at the time. But tell me about the voiceover audition that came out from the Pennsylvania Lottery.
Yeah, well, just harking on, or no, that's not the right word. Piggybacking on what you just said about hitting that point where it's just not coming and you're kind of out to see about what you're going to do. I was at that point. Because it's jumping forward, but the night before I found that I booked this job, I was on the phone with an acquaintance, not even a good friend. I just said, I don't think I can continue to do this. QVC was declining for me. The other work was almost non-existent at that time. Auditions, but not bookings. And I didn't know how I was going to make, mortgage payment and insurance payment and all those things. And I was like, I think I may have to quit. I had done an office job for 25 years, up until 2007, I guess 2008, and I had stopped. But at, 7, 8 years, I was making my living doing this stuff. And 2015, I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I got an audition from a secondary agent and almost didn't take this audition because my primary found out I had a secondary and didn't want me taking auditions for somebody else. And I almost didn't take it, but I thought I had to worry about me. And she didn't get me this audition. So I was contacted by agent at the time and they sent me a recording. And it was an old commercial from the Pennsylvania Lottery featuring Gus the Groundhog, who was an animatronic puppet on air from 2004 to 2012. And this was 2015. I remember saying to my agent, are they bringing him back? It's like, don't ask questions. Just go in and try to sound like the old one. Like, okay. So I got the recording and I practiced a fair amount. I mean, I'm always tried to be preparation, everything I did. It's just the way I am. I don't do things off the cuff typically. So I went into the Philly Post, which is a sound studio, and I've never been there before, right? Done very little voiceover work and not at that particular sound studio. And I went in tomorrow's the anniversary, October 9th. This is October 8th. It was on October the 9th, I remember it. And I went in and I went into the booth and put cans on, and John, who was outside, flicked the button and said something to me, and I'm like, no. So it was like, you can't hear me. How about now? And no. And so I was practicing. I had the recording on my phone and I was listening and then doing it and listening to do it, while he was fiddling with the board, trying to figure out why we were not communicating. And I don't know, you'd think it went on longer than it did, but I know that I must have done it at least a dozen times because, it's quick. It's only a few lines. And I was over and over and over. So it was kind of grooved. When we finally got to do it, I did 2 takes, came out. He said, played them. Which one do you like? I said, I like the second one, but I like one word in the first one. And the one word in the first one had a vibrato in it, which Gus had often. And he had to sound bashful. And the word was, well, so he took that and he put it, cut it, pasted it. I was like, whoa, that was easy. And then I was hopeful. I was hoping to be called back. And, with lottery, you never find out right away. They don't book instantly. So waiting more than a week was not uncommon. But I remember hitting the 2-week mark and thinking, Friday, 2 weeks ago, and nothing. So then I remember the following Friday thinking it's 3 weeks. I hadn't thought about a week, but I'm thinking, I definitely think it. 4 days later, I was at a funeral for one of the wives and one of the hosts, QVC, a woman I had met, lovely woman who died young. And I mention this because the funeral was uplifting. It was a celebration of life. It was not down at all. And I came out feeling actually, I don't know, connected, just uplifted, so I sat down in my car and I checked your phone, and there was an email from the Scott from the Philly Post. Call me, I have work for you. Like, oh, cool. Thinking he heard my audition and has work for me. And I called him and he said, can I make your day? And I said, you already made my day. I said, the email said you have work for me. Anytime an actor gets work, you made his day. And he said, you're Gus. And I said, I said, how do you feel about expletives? And he said, I'm fine with them. And I said, are you effing kidding me? Because I didn't know this guy. I didn't want to offend him, So I booked Gus, and I did not know that they were going to completely bring him back. And when I found out they were, I remember saying, I really hope this lasts 3 years. This would be fun to do for a couple of years. And we just shot 2 commercials in August in Pittsburgh that will air next year, and starting in January, it will be my 10th year voicing him. And I'm still at a pinch me. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I literally sometimes when the commercials come on, I'm like so grateful. It's a lot of fun. People get such a kick out of it. I don't like to tell people because, but But if I feel like they're friendly and fun, or somebody else tells them, they're like, "You're kidding." I'm like, "No, no, I'm," and they get a kick out of it, and I get a kick out of it. They're getting a kick out of it. So it's a lot of fun, and I will forever be grateful for this, because it came at a really rough time. A year after I booked it, my dad was stricken with Alzheimer's, and I became one of his caretakers for almost 3 years with my mom. I'm not unique. Lots of people go through this. But it kept me going. It kept, not just financially. That's not even the thing I'm thinking, that it kept me going because I had something in the midst of all the craziness that goes with being a caretaker. So I'm very grateful.
I just fanboyed a bit when you did that one word as Gus.
Well, that one.
See?
Yeah.
You've got that aura, Rob. Now you have a famous character under your belt.
Yeah.
It's like Mickey Mouse, man.
I know it's quite Mickey Mouse, but he's well known in the tri-state area, and most people like him, it seems. And I've been lucky. The scripts have been fun, and the clients great. And the ad team is great, and it's always a good experience. No complaints at all.
Wow. So not just you, but total, there's been like 80 or 90 Gus ads so far?
There were 50, I think, when he was the puppet, animatronic puppet. Some of them we repeat, but the game will change or the prize amount will change. So it's the same commercial, but technically it's a new commercial because it's for a new game. So you can't count them. I don't count them twice. Probably in 10 years, we've done at least, I don't know, probably between 30 and 40 new ones, but more than, they've run 5 to 6 almost every year. So he's been on probably to 45 and 50 times. Like the Christmas spot is the same if they continue it with Gus on the sled,
Right.
Late. So I was trying to get to see the games.
It's safe to say that you are the most consistent working SAG actor in the Philadelphia region. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Luckily, what the computer on right now is made of wood. I'm going to knock wood. In terms of that, I've been told that by one of the guys from Philly Post. If you were going to book a voiceover job, this is the one to book. And I'm like, I had no idea it would go on this long. So truly great.
And it came just at the right time too, because you were questioning whether or not you really wanted to continue in this line of work. Bills were piling up, and it's as if the universe just came out and said, "Here you go."
The universe said, "Oh, here, you big baby." That's what I remember. That's what I felt like. Because I said, I was thinking of quitting, and it could end tomorrow, and I would be sad, but happy that I had the experience. I'm lucky. I have had 2 long-running gigs as an actor that have kept me going financially and kept me going my heart. QVC and Gus, and it makes me want to do more. Really, I'd love to do more television. I want to get back on back on stage and do some theater. So that's my goals going forward.
You're grateful for what you've had, and then I guess the attitude is, what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always thinking about what's next. Like even when I was at QVC, it changed a lot. So when it was going on the downside, I was disappointed because I hadn't done anything wrong, but I wasn't new anymore, and I think they wanted a new flavor. They just wanted somebody different. So even though my skills hadn't fallen or my dedication, so it's like, okay. And it's what I said earlier. Once you've done something and not that I thought I knew everything, but I felt like I needed to branch out to do something else. And I think it's important to always look at what's next or whatever you do. I think a lot of people do that. Like when you hear about people leaving long running TV shows, and you're like, why would you ever think about leaving the job? But if they're not creatively growing, it's not just about paycheck. There's individual expense.
Of course. It's smart too, especially as it relates to the voiceover job with the lottery, because obviously it's been a phenomenal run that you couldn't foresee. You're extremely grateful for it, but at the same time, nothing lasts forever. And I think it begs the question of the day and age that we're in as it relates to artificial intelligence, because it's not really science fiction to say the director and the client in production can come to you one of these days and say, Rob, we have hundreds of hours of you as Gus, and we can put this into the computer and we can spit out in your tone anything that we chat prompt into the computer. Now, I'm sure that's a possibility, but obviously it would just come down to money. But you would hope that relationships can, one up commerce and economics and dollars in that way. I guess what I'm asking is, do you see that as a possibility at some point, given that what you're doing as far as a long-standing voiceover job this is pretty much like a cherry on top of the sundae before this kind of work possibly heads toward extinction because of AI?
Well, I've thought about it when I heard about it because sure, there have been times when I've had to do certain reactions that weren't necessarily words, just excitement iterations. And I've been told, oh, we have a bunch of them, or we're good. They can use something that they had before. And of course, why not? Why wouldn't you? So if they could use something they had before, then that's actually my recorded voice, not a artificial intelligence replica of it. So, but it's very close to almost being the same thing. Now, with that said, I'm still paid whether I do that line or not, because that's the way the union has thankfully designed things. But I'm sure the union has been very active in trying to make sure that actors are not cut out of the literal equation. But sure, I've thought about it. But again, I guess the thing, what is it? The prayer of serenity? Accept the things you cannot change the things you can. So, hopefully the union will change the things they can. And I just have to accept that that's not in my control. Yeah, to your point about relationship, you always hope, right?
Yeah, it's interesting in the sense that you're always going to be grateful for a paycheck, but I can't imagine the thought of getting a paycheck while you're at home on the couch and getting it's not really a paycheck, but a fee. And I hope this doesn't come at the expense of creators like you and I not being able to create.
Well, yeah, that would be disappointing. I mean, I really do enjoy, if I have to do one line over, I enjoy going in and doing that one line, not just because I'm getting paid, because I love doing Gus. My favorite day of the year is when they do demos. They demo several commercials to decide which ones they may or may not produce. And typically we'll do 4 scripts. So I get to play with 4 different scripts, varied things. And it's verbal acrobatics for the day, because there's a lot of things they have me do. But I love doing that. So, and like the shoot days usually are kind of the same, although you're doing the same lines over and over again. I get to play to figure out what works, what doesn't work. Because typically, even after the shoot, I'm brought back in the studio to re-record the lines, maybe in a little tighter, or maybe a little longer, or maybe it overlapped with another line, or maybe they changed the line. But we like this, but it needs to be shorter. We like this, but we cut out this word for the the commercial after we edit it. So I love doing it because it's fun. I wish I did more of it. Like I'd love to do animation work because it's so much fun.
I saw a video recently of the actors who voiced the Minions. I was laughing my ass off.
Because you're doing all these wild gesticulations.
Yeah. I forgot that these were human beings doing these voices. It almost sounded as if it came from a computer, from AI itself. But I saw these women making these, like you said, gesticulations and these voices and tones and pitches that I don't know where they come from, but they came from somewhere inside of them. And I was just in awe of what I was watching and hearing.
Yeah, I did when I was in forensics, and I did a lot of events, sometimes up to 11 different events. So I would have prose and poetry, single interpret drama, 2 dual interpret dramas, improvisational pairs, and something called mixed interp. So I was doing 7 different things and doing different voices. And that's where some of what I think came from. I never thought of it until I was doing Gus. Like I never really did voices except when I was in competition. And I didn't think about pursuing that avenue in acting. So, but it was opens up a whole new. It's hard because animation, they use the big stars, like you said.
You're a star here, my man. You are.
You can't.
You did Gus there twice in this conversation, and I giggled. I got that little warm fuzzy feeling. Oh my God, he did it! Yeah. I wasn't going to ask you to do it, but you did it.
If you just mentioned giggle, then I guess you have to have the giggle from Gus. So there are 3's a charm. That's it. No more Gus.
There you go. There you go. That part was free. After that, we got to pay.
Yeah, right.
I don't want an email from SAG after this airs. But no, I appreciate that. And let's transition to one of your passions, tennis. Give me a brief list of the accolades and the spots in the world that you've hit, and give me your attitude toward pickleball as a tennis aficionado.
I heard everything but that last statement, so you don't have to repeat it. I don't talk about the dark side, but I will just for you. I took up tennis competitively about 19 years ago, and I played tournaments ever since. Fortunate enough to win several doubles titles and a few singles titles at my level, level C 3.5 club player level. But in the league in which I participate, I was fortunate enough one year to make the international finals in my event. I had won 2 tournaments that year and got to compete in singles in Bangkok, which was crazy. And then 2 years after that, right before COVID, I was in Hawaii, February of 2020. I had qualified in doubles, and while I was there, made the final. I didn't win. My partner and I, we didn't, but it was great. I made the international finals in this league in Hawaii. You can't beat it. So yeah, I'm very fortunate. Tennis is it's my passion. It makes everything else go away. You have to focus, and I forget about everything when I'm out there. I love it. I wasn't an athlete as a kid. I was quick. So being able to do something athletic and do it, moderately well, it's an achievement for you. It's another, I like it because it's really a challenge, because I was not an athlete. It's a hard game. I like
When did you start the game? When did you pick it up?
I always hit around, but I didn't start playing competitively until 2006.
Oh, wow.
So in my 40s.
And you achieved what you achieved at that point.
Yeah.
By starting so late.
Yeah. And I'm at the point now where I don't need to try and qualify for the national finals. Again, I've done it already. If it happens, it's great. But now when I go to tournaments, I want to play with my one favorite doubles partner, because I enjoy being on court with him, whether we win or lose. So it's less about the winning, achieving, and more about just enjoying the activity now. So kind of even in that, it's like, okay, what's next? But pickleball's not there. Pickleball's not next. I may try it because everyone's telling me to, but until I can't play tennis, I think I'm going to just play tennis.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like you're like a bit of a purist in that regard, and that the attitude has to quell a bit before you pick up that the pickleball and do the clickety-clack game versus the softer game with the felt ball.
If it's getting more people to be more active, it's great. I think what's happening though is people think, oh, this is easy, and you're seeing a lot of pickleball knees and ankles. You hear it from everybody, but like everybody, because weekend warriors think you're still doing a lot of pivoting on older joints, so you have to be kind of conditioned to do that. But again, if people are getting more active and getting more outside and off their phones and off their couches, then I think it's a good thing. Not for me yet.
Hope springs eternal. Very nice, very nice. So, given everything that we've talked about, when you take into account forensics, speech, debate, guest hosting, camera work, theater, Gus the Groundhog, take all that and you wrap it up into a ball. What are 1 or 2 wisdom pearls that the acting industry, show business, or life in general has presented to you? And what are those thoughts that you carry forward?
As you're mentioning all this, I feel like you probably never heard of Ralph Edwards, did you?
Ralph Edwards.
Did a show called This Is Your Life.
Okay. Before my time.
Old enough to remember reruns, but you mentioned, gosh, I've done a lot of things. Just mentioning that, I'm thinking I've been very lucky and very grateful. I mean, that's what I was just thinking as you were talking. Like, I'm very lucky and very grateful for it. Overall, pearls of wisdom. Like I told you once you think you know everything about something, move on. Because if you can't learn any more about it, you'll stagnate. Yes. The other is, don't treat anything like life or death that isn't life or death. Granted, there are things that are upsetting and you're allowed to react. Everybody's feelings are valid, but don't treat them like life or death unless they are life or death. I guess the other thing, it's kind of related. Don't get too high or too low. Like when I booked Gus, my agent was like, "Oh my gosh," and I was like, "Chill." I said, "Let's make sure I've secured this. Let's make sure that this is really, they told me I booked it, but I still have to go through my paces to make sure they made the right decision." So I was very calm and very focused on not messing this up. Because at the potential, I didn't think 10 years, but so I think it's important. And again, when you're in this business, when you lose the big one, like you said, something else might be coming on. So try not to get too down. I think those are the pearls that I try to live by.
So basically we go back to what's next.
Yeah. That's part of it. There's so much I still want to do. I want to write, facts of things that I've started to write over the years, but it's harnessing my energy and a lot of other responsibilities like everybody else does. So hopefully, if health stays with me, I'll be doing more.
Of course you will. And I can't wait to see what that's going to be. And I appreciate this conversation. And
for asking me, I'm humbled by it. And I mean that sincerely. I really am. I don't know that. I don't think I'm special. I think I'm lucky in that way. I got lucky is what I did. Yeah. Okay. I had to earn but this kind of stuff falls into your lap and it stays with you that long. Yeah.
Well, we know about luck, right? Preparation and opportunity, getting together, having a drink or two, and then voila, here's luck.
Yeah.
So there's luck and then there's creating your luck. And you've certainly have done that.
Yes.
You stuck with it long enough to have a gig that you're going to be connected with for a long, long time, and you have been. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to associate with you and to know you throughout these ups and downs. You have taught me just as much, even though you may not have realized it. And I appreciate our association and our friendship. And to what is next, my friend? What is next?
And thank you.
You can check out Robb as Gus the Groundhog and the PA Lottery commercials. I believe they're on YouTube. And again, Robb Del Casale, I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you on set one of these days.
Thank you. I hope so.